I still remember the day we bought that plot of land. It was nothing but sand, weeds, and wild dreams. Charles looked at it and said, "Give it 10 years, Margaret. This will be our little kingdom." And he made it so, brick by brick, beam by beam. That house rose from the ground like something sacred. We didn't hire fancy builders. Charles worked with his own hands. I picked out every tile, every curtain, every doorknob. We raised Thomas there. He took his first steps on the back porch, said his first words in the kitchen, learned to swim in the pool Charles built with his college buddy. That house wasn't just ours. It was us. And when Charles passed, I stayed because I couldn't leave him behind. Thomas visited less after that. Always busy, always rushing. And then he brought Alicia home. She was beautiful, smart, polished, but the kind of smart that knows how to smile while watching you. Disappear at first. I tried. Lord knows I tried. I made her tea, gave her space, even offered her the master suite when they moved in for a while. Just temporary, they said. But the little changes started quickly. My photos came off the walls. My rocking chair moved to the garage. Alicia would sigh and say, "Modern touches, Margaret. It's time this place evolved. Evolved." She didn't know what those walls had heard. She didn't care, Thomas. He stopped speaking up, stopped noticing when my seat at the table got moved, when they stopped inviting me to dinners, when my birthday went by with just a text message, "Busy week." "Mom, sorry." Then came the papers. Thomas said it was to streamline finances, said it would help if we put the house under a family trust, that it would protect the property if anything ever happened to me. And like a fool, I signed because I trusted my son. I didn't ask for copies, didn't read the fine print, didn't think I had to. And that was the beginning. They started making bigger decisions without me, redecorating, hosting events, repainting Charles's study, turning it into Alicia's home office. I heard her on the phone once. "Yes, it's huge, but we'll remodel. Maybe list it next year. List it." They were planning to sell my home. My Charles's dream. Without even asking, I brought it up to Thomas. He waved it off. "Don't be dramatic." "Mom, you know we'd never do anything without you." But I wasn't so sure anymore. Then came the worst part. One night, I walked into the kitchen and Alicia was already there, whispering on the phone. "She won't fight it," she said. "She's old." She just fade out. She turned and saw me, smiled. Double quotes. "Want some tea, Margaret?" That's when I knew I wasn't family anymore. I was furniture, and furniture can be moved or thrown out. But what Alicia didn't know was that Charles left one final surprise inside that house, and it had my name written all over it. The morning after Alicia locked me out, I didn't cry. I didn't beg. I just sat at a quiet diner, sipping burnt coffee with shaky hands. That house held my whole life. And now, couldn't even get through the front gate. But I remembered something, a whisper from years ago. Charles once said, "If you ever feel like the house is slipping away, check the safe deposit box." At the time, I laughed it off. He was always cautious, always preparing for things I thought would never come. But maybe he saw something I didn't. So I called the bank. Turns out, the box was still active, hadn't been touched since the day he passed. I took a cab straight there when the banker opened the little steel door and slid out the box. My hands shook. Inside, everything smelled like old paper and cedarwood. There were a few letters from Charles, his cufflinks, our wedding photo in a worn leather frame, and then a thick envelope marked in his handwriting. "If things ever turn ugly." I opened it slowly. Inside were documents, legal ones, a second deed, a clause I'd never seen before. One that stated the house could never be sold, signed over or transferred without my written, notarized consent. It was dated, stamped, witnessed, filed before Charles even passed. And there, right below his signature, was mine. I had forgotten about it. He must have asked me to sign it with all the other paperwork after his diagnosis. He was always thinking ahead. Even when I wasn't ready to face what might come, I sat in that tiny vault room for a long time, heart pounding, tears falling, not from sadness this time, but from relief. I hadn't lost everything. Not yet. And Alicia, she had no idea this existed. She thought locking me out would be the end of me. But it was just the beginning. I took the documents straight to Mr. Fielding, our old family lawyer. He was retired now, but still sharp as ever. After reading everything, he looked up and said, "Margaret, this changes everything." He explained that their trust deed was void if they failed to disclose this earlier one. And since I never signed over the rights knowingly, what they did could be seen as manipulation, maybe even fraud. I swallowed hard. "Can we fight it?" I asked. He gave a small smile. "Oh, we won't just fight. We'll win." He made copies, filed a motion with the court, put in a formal request to freeze any attempts to sell or refinance the house, and then he made a call to aliciaslawyer.polite.com. But firm, "I'd advise your client to refrain from touching a single thing inside that house," he said. Until this is cleared, I walked out of that office a different woman. I wasn't just someone they tossed out. I was a homeowner, a fighter. And this time I had the papers to prove it. The next morning, Alicia opened her front door and saw something she never expected. Me, standing there with a court order in hand. When I walked up to that front door, the same one Alicia locked me out of, my hands weren't shaking anymore. They were steady, strong, just like they used to be when I built a life inside those walls. I rang the bell once, then again, and when she finally opened the door, her face froze. "Margaret," she said, blinking fast, "you can't be here." I didn't smile, didn't flinch. I simply held out the envelope. "You've been served." I said. She didn't take it, just stared at the thick stack of papers, like they were about to catch fire in her hands. "This is a court order," I continued, "effective immediately. You're not allowed to sell, remodel, or claim this home as your own until this is resolved." Her mouth opened, then shut. She looked past me, hoping maybe anyone was watching. But it was just us, two women at war. One with charm and a smile, the other with proof and power. She stepped outside and closed the door behind her. "You're doing this to hurt Caleb," she whispered. "You're jealous. That house is our future." I raised an eyebrow. "No," I said. "That house was my past, my present, and still by law my home." Her eyes darted around. She wasn't used to losing. "Not like this. I didn't mean to lock you out," she added quickly. "It was a misunderstanding." I pulled out a second copy of the deed from my purse, the one with my name still on it. "You looked me in the eye and told me I wasn't welcome. You slammed the door on me. And now that the truth is here, you're calling it a misunderstanding." For a second, she looked small, like a balloon losing air. Then, as if flipping a switch, she straightened up. "You don't scare me," she hissed. "We'll see what the judge says." I nodded. "We will." And I walked past her, right through the door. The lock beeped. But I didn't stop, because it didn't matter anymore. The law was on my side, and she knew it. Inside, the house looked different, colder. They'd already removed so many of Charles's things. Family photos, his favorite chair, even the old chessboard we used to laugh over on rainy days. I walked slowly through the hallway, touching the places I'd painted with my own hands. Room by room, I felt that this was still mine, no matter what she told herself, no matter how pretty her furniture was. I stopped at the fireplace above it. A massive painting hung modern, expensive, sterile. I reached up and took it down behind it. A small nail still stuck in the brick, the one that used to hold our family portrait. I smiled for the first time that day, because no matter how they tried to erase me, the bones of this house remembered. And now, so did the courts. Later that night, I found something even more shocking. A letter tucked behind the kitchen drawer, written by Charles, addressed to me, and dated the week before he died. It was late. The house was quiet, too quiet for a home that once echoed with Sunday dinners, laughter, and jazz music from Charles's old record player. I was in the kitchen just trying to find my old teacup, the one with the tiny chip on the rim. I opened drawer after drawer. Nothing felt familiar anymore. Then I pulled at the cutlery drawer and it jammed halfway. I tugged gently, and something slid behind the frame. Curious, I reached under, and my fingers touched. Paper dot, it was folded, yellowed at the edges, carefully hidden, like it had been waiting. I sat at the kitchen table, unfolded it slowly, and saw his handwriting. Charles. Double quotes Margaret. It began, my breath caught in my throat. I know you might never find this, but if you do, it means something has gone wrong. My hands trembled. Tears welled before I could stop them. I've been watching Caleb drift away. He's not the boy we raised anymore. And Alicia, she's not what she pretends to be. I read each word like it was oxygen. Something tells me they're eyeing the house. They talk when they think I'm asleep. About value. About plans. About removing the old touches. That's you, Margaret. You're the heart of this home. And if they try to erase you, don't let them. I pressed my hand to my chest like I could feel him there with me. I've updated the deed. Left a copy with Frank the lawyer. If they come for what's ours, you fight them with everything we built together. And if you ever feel alone, remember, this house remembers you. It ended with one simple line, always yours. Charles. I wept. Right there at the table. Not because I was sad, but because someone had seen this coming. He had seen this coming, and even from the grave. He had left me a shield. He had known I would need strength, and he gave it to me in the only way he could that night. I didn't sleep. I sat on the porch, letter in hand, watching the moonlight spill over the yard we planted together. They thought they could erase me, but Charles made sure I'd be remembered. And now I had something even stronger than a court order. I had proof of intention, of foresight, of love. The next morning, I drove to Frank's office. When I handed him the letter, his eyes widened. I remember this, he said softly. He made me swear never to mention it unless you showed it to me. He reached into a locked cabinet and pulled out a thick file. Original deed. Signed amendments. Witness statements. Everything we needed. You've got them beat. Margaret, he said. I nodded, but I didn't feel victorious. Not yet. Because a piece of me still hoped. Caleb would show up. Would apologize. Would remember the love we gave him. But hope. Hope was fading. Later that week, I found out exactly why Alicia had wanted me gone, and it had nothing to do with the mansion's beauty, and everything to do with what she planned to do with it. I always thought Alicia just wanted a nicer life, better furniture, bigger kitchen. Maybe her name on the mailbox, but I was wrong. This wasn't about comfort. This was about control. It started with a phone call from a woman I hadn't spoken to in years, Nora, my old neighbor from across the lake. Margaret, she said, I didn't know how to reach you, but I thought you should know. Something strange is going on. I leaned in. What do you mean? She hesitated. Alicia's been meeting with developers. My heart skipped. Developers. I asked. Double quotes. Yes. They came to my door last week, asked him about buying land near the water. Said they're working with your daughter-in-law. That the Harper mansion was already being prepped for demolition. I nearly dropped the phone. Demolition, not renovation. Not upgrades. Not redecorating. They weren't trying to live in the house. They were trying to sell it. Tear it down. Build some shiny new complex in its place. Everything Charles and I built. Gone. I thanked Nora and hung up. Then I sat on the edge of the bed for a long time. I kept seeing it in my mind. The dining room where we held Thanksgiving dinners. Bulldozed. The garden Charles planted. Flattened. All for what? Money, status. Alicia didn't want a family legacy. She wanted a project. And Caleb. He was letting her, maybe even helping her. That cut deeper than anything. I drove back to the house that day. I didn't knock. I walked right through the front gate. Used my original key and pushed the door open. Alicia was on the phone in the living room. Once we close on the lot, we'll submit the demolition plans. Yes, I've got signatures. No, the old woman isn't a problem anymore. She's staying with a friend. She turned and froze. I was standing there. In my house, not gone. Not erased. Very much alive. She fumbled with the phone. Ended the call fast, Margaret. I thought you were still staying with that friend. I held up a folder. You mean the one I met with at the courthouse? Where I filed an injunction to block all property transfers. That friend. She went pale. You don't understand. This is for the future. No, this was never yours to ruin. I walked past her every room I passed. I saw it differently now. Not just walls and paint, but memories, promises, a lifetime of small, sacred things. They thought they could turn it into profit, but I wasn't going to let that. Alicia started stammering. We were going to move you into a nice senior condo, one with staff and a pool. I stopped walking, turned slowly. You mean the same place you applied to in my name without asking? The one where you forged my ID? She didn't answer. Her face said enough. They weren't trying to help me. They were trying to remove me from the land. From the will. From the picture, just like that gone dot, but Charles had known. He saw this coming. And he left me every weapon I needed now. It was my turn to fight back. And the first strike would be public. Because Alicia forgot this mansion didn't just hold our memories. It held proof. Alicia cared more about appearances than anything. She always did. From the way she dressed, to the way she smiled through her teeth at neighbors, to how she made sure everyone thought she was the perfect daughter-in-law. So, I used that. It was time someone saw behind that smile. The city was throwing a fundraiser gala that weekend. Right here in our neighborhood. Of course, Alicia signed up as a sponsor. She'd be hosting it at her beautiful estate. A line she had printed right on the invites, only. It wasn't hers, and I was done being quiet. So I called Mr. Jeffries, my lawyer, and gave him a simple request. Let's make it official. Let's show the community who this house really belongs to. He filed the motion. He got the deed. And then he got me a microphone. The night of the gala, the house was glowing. Candles in every window. Fresh flowers on every table. Alicia floated through the crowd like royalty. Fake laughter. Whispers in corners. All for her big moment. But just before she could take the stage, I stepped out from the hallway, wearing the very necklace Charles gave me on our 30th anniversary. Alicia froze. Whispers rippled across the room. Some people clapped confused. Others just watched. She tried to stop me. This isn't the time, Margaret. Oh, I think it's exactly the time I took the mic from the event host. And I said, "Good evening, neighbors. I'm Margaret Harper. Some of you may know me as the woman who built this house with my late husband, Charles. Some of you may not know me at all because I've been erased from my own home. You could hear a pin drop. But tonight, I want to set the record straight." I looked right at Alicia. This house, this land was never for sale. Never up for demolition. And never signed away willingly. I held up this stamped legal folder. This is a court order. It's confirming I am and have always been the legal owner of this estate. Any documents stating otherwise were gained through lies, pressure, or forgery. Gasps from the audience. Alicia stepped forward. "She's just confused." "No," I said firmly. "I'm angry. And I'm awake." People murmured. One man in the back whispered, "Wait. They tried to sell this place." Without her knowing. Another said, "I heard they were tearing it down." The truth was spreading faster than any lie Alicia ever told. I finished with this. I built this life from scratch with love, sweat, and a man who respected me. I won't let anyone, family or not, turn it into a business deal. And then I walked off the stage. The applause came slow. But it grew. And Alicia, she stood there frozen. In front of everyone she tried to impress. The realtor was there too. He slipped out the side door by the end of the night. Half the guests had left early, and those who stayed didn't look at her the same way anymore. She tried to smile, but that mask had cracked, and she knew it. The next morning, the press picked it up, small paper. Big headline, "Local matriarch fights back family feud over mansion turns." Legal. I didn't care about fame. I cared about the truth. And now, everyone finally saw it. But Alicia wasn't done yet. Because when a liar's caught, they either run or dig deeper, and she was just getting started. I thought the gala would be the end of it. I thought Alicia would back down. But people like her. They don't back down, they double down. 3 days later, I got served at my motel. Alicia was countersuing for harassment, emotional damages, and, get this, unlawful entry. Into my own home, I read the papers and almost laughed, almost, but it still hurt. She didn't just want to win. She wanted to bury me, she wanted to scare me into silence, but I'd already lost too much to be quiet again, so I called Mr. Jeffries. He told me, let her come, because we've got the real case. So we went to court. Big marble building. Cold hallways. Strangers in suits, whispering names I didn't know. Alicia walked in with her lawyers, 2 of them. Actually, wearing a white blazer. Like she was some TV angel. But even the judge didn't seem impressed. We took our seats and the hearing began. Alicia's side went first. Her lawyers talked fast. They painted me as confused, old, forgetful. Said I'd misunderstood what I signed. They waved around papers I'd never seen. One of them even called me unstable. I gripped the edge of the table. Not because I was afraid, but because I couldn't believe how far they were willing to go. And then it was our turn. Mr. Jeffrey stood calmly. He didn't yell. He didn't twist. He just laid it all out. Your Honor, this isn't about confusion. It's about deception. He handed the judge the real deed, the trust paperwork. Charles, will, all notarized. All legal. Then he said, and finally, we have this. He opened a slim black folder. Inside was a sealed letter, signed by Charles himself. Mr. Jeffries continued. This letter was given to me before Mr. Harper's death. He asked that I only open it if there was ever a dispute over the home. He handed it to the judge. The courtroom went silent. The judge read it, out loud, to whom it may concern. This home was built by my wife and met together. It is to remain under her name for as long as she lives. Anyone attempting to override this decision, including family, is going against my will. Charles Harper. The sound of Alicia's gasp hit like a dropped glass. Her lawyer tried to object, but the judge held up a hand. I've heard enough. He turned to Alicia. Did you know about this letter? Alicia stuttered. No, Your Honor, I was told. That's the problem, the judge interrupted. You were told, but you never asked, never checked. And now you're standing on lies. He looked at me. Double quotes, Mrs. Harper. You have every right to your home. My heart nearly stopped. I didn't even cry. I just breathed. For the first time in months. I breathed without pain. But what the judge said next, that's what truly shocked me. Even more than winning the case. Because sometimes justice gives you more than you ask for. And I wasn't ready for what came next. I thought the judge would say, case closed, and send us all home. But instead, he leaned forward, looked right at Alicia, and said something I'll never forget. This court sees evidence not just of confusion, but of calculated deception. Mrs. Harper, you were targeted, manipulated by someone who wanted control. That's not just cruel. That's criminal. The courtroom went still. Alicia's lawyer's face went pale. Then the judge added, I'm referring this case for further investigation. My heart thudded. What does that mean? I whispered to Mr. Jeffries. He smiled gently. It means Alicia might be facing fraud. Charges, double quotes, fraud. That word echoed through the room like a THUNDERCLAP. Alicia finally spoke. This is ridiculous. She's twisting everything. She's playing the victim, but the judge just raised an eyebrow. You locked your elderly mother-in-law out of her home. You misrepresented legal documents. And you tried to sell a property that never legally belonged to you. The victim here is obvious. I didn't even look at her. I just stared down at my hands. because I knew Charles would be proud. And then the judge turned to me, double quotes. Not only is your ownership restored, but I'm ordering immediate removal of the opposing party from the premises. He slammed the gavel. Once effective today. That word today hit Alicia like a slap. Her jaw dropped. You mean I have to leave now? The judge didn't even blink. You never had the right to stay in the first place. Outside the courtroom, reporters were waiting. Apparently, the gala gossip had already gone public. A few microphones turned my way. One woman asked, "How does it feel to win?" I didn't say much, just looked into the camera and said, "I didn't win a battle. I just took back what was mine." By the time I reached the mansion, Alicia's things were already being packed up. She was on the front lawn yelling into her phone, but this time, no one was listening. Neighbors who once praised her now crossed the street to avoid her. It was quiet revenge, not loud, not cruel, just truth finally doing its job. The house felt different when I walked in, lighter, like it could breathe again, like I could. Mr. Jeffries handed me one final envelope. This came through during the hearing, he said. I opened it. Inside was a letter from Charles' life insurance. Turns out he'd left a clause in place I didn't even know about. If I was ever forced from the home unlawfully, a special fund would be activated, and now that fund was mine. Enough to restore the home, fix what Alicia tried to break, and maybe even hire someone to help me run the place again. For the first time in years, I didn't feel abandoned. I felt backed, protected, and completely in control. But as I stood on the porch and watched Alicia's car disappear, I had no idea who'd be knocking on my door next. Someone I hadn't seen in a very long time. And not for the reason you'd think. I was sipping tea on the back patio when I heard the knock, soft, gentle. Not the kind of knock you give when you're angry or selling something. I opened the door, and there she stood, Emily, my granddaughter, tears already in her eyes. She looked so much like her father at that age. Hopeful, scared, caught between two worlds. "Hi, Grandma," she whispered. I hadn't seen her since the birthday party 2 years ago. The one Alicia said I was too tired to attend. I never believed that. Now I knew. It was just one of many lies. I heard everything. Emily said, "I read the court papers. I watched the news. I didn't know she did that to you." "I'm so sorry." I pulled her into a hug. She didn't pull away. We sat on the porch together, just like Charles and I used to. The sun warmed our faces. Birds chirped in the trees. Charles planted himself. "Dad didn't say much," she admitted. "He just said you were being dramatic." I smiled sadly. "Sometimes, Emily, telling the truth looks dramatic to people who've built their lives on lies." She nodded. "Can I come back here? Can I help take care of the place? I don't want this house to just be a story I tell someday. I want to be part of it." My throat tightened. "Of course, sweetheart. This place was always meant for more than one lifetime, so that's what we did." Over the next few weeks, Emily moved into the guest house. She painted the porch with me, helped me clean out the attic. She even found Charles' old fishing rod and asked me to teach her how to use it. One night, while watching fireflies from the balcony, she turned to me and said, "You know what, Grandma? You didn't just get your house back. You got your voice back." And she was right. For so long, I stayed quiet, smiled when I was hurt, trusted when I should have read the fine print. But that day at the gate when Alicia locked me out, that was the last day I ever let anyone silence me. This mansion isn't just made of bricks. It's made of memories, of love, of hard work, of promises that deserve to be kept. And now, it's alive again, not because I fought, but because I remembered who I am. I'm not just a mother, or a widow, or a woman who got pushed aside. I'm Margaret Harper, the woman who built this home, the woman who protected it, even when her own family turned against her, and the woman who now sits on this porch, with her granddaughter by her side, knowing she didn't just win back a deed, she rebuilt a legacy. Have you ever had to stand up for yourself against people who were supposed to protect you? Tell me in the comments. Because your story might be the one someone else needs to hear today. The moment I heard the gate lock behind me, I knew this wasn't just about space. It was war. I was standing outside my own home. The Florida sun beat down, hot and heavy, and there I was. Suitcase in one hand, keys in the other, and the lock just beeped red again and again. I tried the app on my phone. It said access denied, as if I was a stranger. That's when the front door, opened, and she stepped out, Alicia, my daughter-in-law. Hair perfect, smile tight, phone in her hand like it was part of her body. She didn't look surprised. She looked ready. She tilted her head and said it like she was commenting on the weather. This house is ours now. You're not welcome. No anger. No shame. Just final. I stood there blinking, like I hadn't heard her right. Hours. I had spent the last 40 years building that house. My late husband, Charles, and I poured everything we had into it. We didn't just live in that home. We became part of its bones. And now she was talking to me like I was an old tenant past my lease. I looked past her shoulder. The living room light was on. My blue vase, the one Charles bought me for our 10th anniversary, was gone. In its place was a modern metal thing I didn't recognize. The house had already started to change. So had my son. I swallowed hard. Tried to stay calm. Where's Thomas? I asked. She shrugged. Busy, he said. You'd understand. No, I didn't understand. Not one bit. I stepped forward. But she put her hand on the frame like a guard at a gate. You should find somewhere else, Margaret. A condo. Something simple. This place is too much for you now. My name. Not mom, not mother-in-law, just Margaret. Cold. Like she was erasing me with one word at a time. I glanced down at my suitcase. She had packed it for Minnie, tight, zipped. She had planned this, maybe even rehearsed it, but what she didn't know was that I still held the deed. My name, still on every legal paper in the county office. That house was never hers. She thought I was soft. Too slow. Too old to notice what she and Thomas were doing behind closed doors. But that very morning, I had received a call. A quiet, careful voice on the other end. Mrs. Hayworth, he said. This is Mr. Landon. I'm your husband's old lawyer. I believe we need to talk. About your son. That was before the suitcase. Before the locked door. Before Alicia smiled at me like she had one. And now? Now I wasn't just locked out. I was wide awake. Have you ever felt like someone you loved slowly pushed you out? Like they smiled while taking everything that used to be yours. If this story sounds even a little bit familiar, stick around, because I've got a few twists they didn't see coming. And if you're new here, go ahead and subscribe, because what's about to unfold is only just getting started. And Alicia had no idea the lawyer had called me that very morning. Not to check on me, but to warn me.